Jeff, welcome.
Well, thanks, Christian. I know we've known each other for a long time, but this is my first digital SAC lunch, and I'm looking forward to talking about stuff with you.
Now, did you bring food? I mean, I actually, have like bag pretzels. I've got my beverage.
I had my coffee, but I think I left it in the microwave. So if you saw my post on Facebook and Twitter the other day about how many times on average do you go back to get your coffee out of the microwave? Because like you, I work from home a lot, and at that particular day, it was number 3, and I think it's still in the microwave. So I'm sure my dog
warming up for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure my dog Ellie's already consumed it by now.
Well, and I should also point out for those who might be wondering, so I'm representing OneDrive here today. Jeff, we are not wearing, we're not twins.
Wait, I got my Hyperfish shirt on. So thanks, Jeremy and team for getting me that.
Well, and it's kind of funny if you can see it here, on my screen too. So I've got Finn the human over here wearing Hyperfish as well. So
and you can't see it very well, but over there, like right there, is a dolphin. So I don't know if you can actually see it.
Yeah.
There's a dolphin with a little like floppy and a Voices for Innovation and a Yammer. That's a Yammer bottle, by the way.
Oh,
so,
nice.
So as we moved last time, I had a whole bunch of stuff I found, and I think I kept a bunch of tech. I've got some Blackberries, like 5 or 6 Blackberries, and yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get
Look at product placement. We're talking partners and partner channel, so might as well have some product placement from partners.
And these are some of the best partners. And the VFI one, again, it's that orange bottle you can sort of see over there. That's Voices for Innovation. The VFI team has been fantastic as a supporter for our community as a whole. And I can certainly talk about that. But it's, I think, from our Microsoft friends and our partner friends, they keep us well-dressed and well-informed.
Yeah, my wife would argue not so well dressed. She doesn't like me wearing things with logos on them, but I'm just like, well, that's like most of my clothing now. But hey, so jumping into it, so Jeff and I known each other for a long time, but we also co-founded the Seattle chapter of the International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners, or IAMCP. And I served as president for 3.5 years. Jeff, you've been there about that long as president now.
Yep.
Has it been that long already?
This will be 3 years in October. So we're coming up on 3 years.
So I think that means 6 years ago we launched the chapter. So, so I moved away, and so I was on the board there, but moved away and now part of the Utah chapter of IAMCP. But we were also talking about, with that going on, hey, there you go.
IAMCP, join us.
And there it is. We're also talking about some of our takeaways from Microsoft Inspire, which happened in July, and from a partner perspective. So, I mean, there's a lot of cool things that always, you go to a Microsoft event, whether it's partner-centric like Inspire. We're coming up now this month. We're in September. It's going to be Microsoft Ignite, which is the IT pro-centric. You've got Build for developers. And everybody's excited about like what announcements there are around technology, different things that Microsoft is doing. But Inspire's different in that there's that. But that's not what it's about. In fact, I don't know how many sessions that you went to, Jeff, but I went to 0 sessions.
We have similar numbers. I also went to 0 sessions. I made it to no sessions.
And I was telling my wife about this. It's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, what, were you kicking back in the hotel? I was like, no. I was in meetings constantly, or when I was able to, walking the floor, looking around at the vendors that are there, talking, trying to understand what people are doing, what kind of innovations out there. And I always ask that question as I approach and talk to somebody new, like, what do you do? What's your product? What's your service? How long have you been in this space? What areas do you cover? Or what kind of partners do you have? Who do you work with? That kind of stuff. And I'm thinking in my mind, hey, do I know somebody within my local chapter, in the Seattle chapter, somebody nationally, internationally, that might have a need for that? Or does it fit in with my business? I mean, what's your approach? What are your takeaways from Inspire overall? But what's your approach to work in the crowd?
So my approach is pretty similar. It's you meet partners. So some are system integrators, some are, and by the way, one of the challenges has been the terminology is changing. So the whole, not concept, but the terminology and the acronyms are changing slightly, or the acronyms are staying the same, but the Microsoft definition of them is changing. So we've always had ISVs, and we've always had system integrators, but even some of those things are sort of morphing around. So there's MSPs now, and LSPs have changed. They're called something else now, but the learning solution providers. So my approach is very similar to yours. I just ask, I don't go, cross my arm and say, so tell me everything about your business, but I ask very similar questions. Where do you do business? Are there any particular products you focus on? Because of course, some do Dynamics, some do Office 365, some do BizTalk, some do SQL, some do big data. And these days they could do HoloLens and they could be Azure focused. There's a lot of different things. So I asked about where they do business, where do they want to do business, what products do they currently support, what products do they want to support, do they support or go after any particular vertical industries, or do they solve or address horizontal challenges? And there's no sort of wrong answer. It's just trying to understand their business. And sometimes, very similar to you, as I look to my network, certainly to my local chapter here in Seattle, but I look to the network of IAMCP members around the world to say, wow, you're doing business in Brazil or Ecuador or Asia or wherever they happen to be. I shouldn't say Asia is general, I'll say Australia or Singapore or Hong Kong. There are a lot of partners that are sometimes based here in Seattle, sometimes based in other parts of the world that are supporting those businesses. So it's a little bit of the where do they do business, where do they want to do business, what products, and where do they want to be from a regional perspective, and then the industries they focus on. And sometimes it's, wow, we've got I'll use a kind of funny. It's somebody who I met for the first time at Inspire. So it's these random conversations. So one of these takeaways are these random, somebody just happened to sit next to at a table. And for better or worse, you and I think most people that attend Inspire have this very quirky thing that we'll talk to anyone. And,
well, pretty much.
Yeah. We'll see.
I mean, I'm just in the lounge area. In fact, I did this 3 or 4 times where I went in and sat down in the IAMCP lounge area. Of course, look, people that are formally involved that are members of IAMCP, by nature, they are connector personalities. They want to do business. They're looking for opportunities for partnership, because IAMCP is about peer-to-peer networking.
Right.
It's not about free lunch and sitting around learning about new technology with a guest speaker, which is great sometimes, but it's about, hey, here's what I have. Here's where I could use some help. Hey, I know somebody that can help you. And so I sat down in the lounge in IAMCP, and every single time somebody I did not know struck up a conversation. What are you doing? Exchange cards. It just every single time it happens. So I don't know if those folks were members. Some of them probably were. It just looked like an open couch in this massive expo hall in a place they could sit down. But yeah, I mean, Inspire is very much like that.
Yeah. In fact, what happened at this one, I was over at the Lifetiles booth and talking to those guys for a while. And then it was basically kind of shutting down. It's like 4:55. It was shutting down at 5. So I walked over kind of down to the end of the hall. It was standing there just making some notes after our conversation, and struck up a conversation with the people next to me. His name's Ricardo Zane, and his company, back to the point about what they're working on, they had just been doing a little pilot of HoloLens. He goes, it's not our core business, but we want to understand what the whole mixed reality side of things is. They've been doing it for a while. It's not like they just started. They actually had a practice, and they were one of the top, I think, 20 or 22 HoloLens providers in the US. But turns out he's been a IAMCP Seattle member before. We got talking about that. Turns out he's in Seattle. And I think, like most people should do at these meetings, is if it makes sense, set up a follow-on meeting. So we did. We set up a follow-on meeting for a couple of weeks later after we got back and take vacations and whatnot. So the day we were supposed to meet, we got connected, and I said, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. He texts me about, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning and says, can't meet for lunch today. Big changes in our business. We just got sold to Accenture. So you kind of go, wow, congratulations. Is that good? He goes, yeah, it's fantastic. So the point of that was, you don't know who you're going to meet. And a takeaway from Inspire is not talk to everyone, but if you are on an elevator and you see somebody has a badge, I will almost always ask, hey, what do you do? Where are you from?
Right.
And sure, you occasionally get I don't want to talk right now. They don't say that, but you can tell. But 98% of the time, they're happy to talk because that's what they're there for. So I think one of the big takeaways I found was that partners, like always, they're there to connect. But I think from the Microsoft side, I'm going to call it the 3 C's. So the number 1 C, and we heard it over and over and over again, is consume or consumption. So the Microsoft reps this year are paid on consumption, and any partner that was paying attention, and if you're not paying attention, pay attention now. Any partner that was paying attention or wasn't paying attention, Microsoft reps are paid on consumption. So the number one takeaway I got was that consumption matters. So if you are driving something, hopefully predictably and repeatedly, monthly, quarterly, et cetera, the Microsoft reps are going to pay attention to you, and you'll be their next best friend. Yep. And that's the first C. The second C is this channel, where Microsoft is, I'll say, re-engaging in the channel. I mean, for a long time, you wouldn't hear Microsoft say that C word. They would say different words. I'm a partner sales exec. I'm a whatever. Now there's actually a new role that's called an enterprise channel manager. And it's a new role that a lot of IAMCP members have this skill. Just like you said, we're connectors, we're communicators, we help make that Sistine Chapel connection happen. So that there's a lot on the channel. And the last one that I would say is connect. And so the third C is connect. And maybe I should write a blog about this, but the idea is it's connecting partners. So these enterprise channel managers, and all the way down as it trickles down and out into the field, whether you're working on Tony Towns Whitley's 6 vertical industries, or whether you're working on horizontal solutions, it's how do partners connect? I should say it like this, how they intersect, because there's a lot of partners out there that, like you just said it, some have expertise in Office 365, and they might have expertise on the IT side. They might have expertise on the architecture side. They might have expertise in the change management side, or they might have them all, but that's one particular aspect. And somebody else might say, you know what, I really need to integrate with Dynamics or SAP or Intuit or whatever. So the motto of the IAMCP is connect, learn, and grow. And that's what we try and do. And I know you know that, but I think as we're talking about digital sack lunch, the number one thing I would say to people listening in is, if you're not an IAMCP member yet, go find your local chapter, or if needed, start your own local chapter, and we'll help you get that going. But so ironically, we were talking before we started recording, I'm going over to meet up with one of our members, Ted Green, who we've known for years. He's an ex-Microsoftie, just like you and I are. And he's working with another partner about, they have, the good news is they have more business that they know what to do with. And that's a great problem to have. So they need help from people that have different skills. And so I might be one of those skills. Ted and one of his colleagues, Kirk Ewing, will be one of those skills. And the whole idea is to help them grow their business. So it's connect, learn, grow. And the end goal is, look, if I'm not the right fit, I'm totally okay with that. But I think you said it at the beginning, is we will look to our network and go, okay, who do we know that we might be able to connect and at least make an introduction? Worst thing that happens, they know one more person, and nothing happens. The best thing that happens is they start a partnership or a business, and I've seen that happen. People have actually started businesses based on conversations they've had at Inspire. Right. So that was a long roundabout way of, it's the 3 C's, so the things that consume, channel, and connect. Those are the 3 things I took away from the Microsoft side. And then the other side is just, it's those conversations, those somewhat random conversations up the escalator, in the elevator, sitting at a restaurant, sitting at the lunch table, they can lead to something. It's
now, and for people that didn't attend, I mean, there's other ways to interact, and Jeff, you and I have both been part of the conversations around the expansion of some of the the digital assets, the web assets of the web properties of Microsoft for the partner channel, and kind of the evolution that it's gone through of trying to make it not just an annual, hey, I go to the website because I'm getting ready to go to this event, right? But that it's more of a ongoing, I'm engaged, it's a resource for me. And it's not that it's there, it's far from where things that I would do to it, and have provided some feedback around that, and that it needs to be, I would say, more community involvement in the conversations and the content on the site. There was more community content on the site 2 years ago than there is now. Yeah. And so Microsoft, I think, goes through this cycle kind of around that. But to the comment that you made about that, Microsoft is recognizing more around channel and having more of that conversation. Microsoft, I think one thing that's unique, and it's a huge strength for the company, has been the partner network. And I don't know what the number is, what Microsoft is touting. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood, the number they're using, of like 650,000 partners worldwide. Is that
correct? Yep, that's about right. Yep.
And, so there's, obviously a lot of opportunity there, just like you said, to, I'm in this, IAMCP provides a great benefit of, if I'm trying to scale and I just don't have the ability, I don't want to say no to a customer that's halfway around the world, where I'm able to provide part of that service, and I can actually find partners more quickly to fill in the gaps and not say no to a customer to meet their needs. But the point I was going to make on Microsoft is, I think my perception is that Microsoft went through a bit of a lull on what the channel really meant to them.
Yeah.
Is that just me, Jeff? I mean, do you get that feeling? Or?
No, it's not just you. I think they went through, and I would even maybe say it tied to as Steve Ballmer transitioned out and as Satya Nadella transitioned in. I think they took a hard look at what does it mean to be a Microsoft partner, not channel partner, but partner.
Right.
And that was, I think, maybe a little bit of it. I think another aspect of that is the shift to the cloud. I mean, we saw Steve Ballmer say in 2007? No, was it that? Well, no, it was not long ago. 2013, maybe. Whenever WPC, the former name for Inspire, was in DC, Steve Ballmer was on stage saying, I think it was 2013, was saying, the cloud, we're all in. And that was everywhere. And I think it took time. I know it took time because we watched it. So I think it's a combination of the market has changed. Microsoft went through a transition, certainly of management. And I think Satya is doing a fantastic job. His new book, Hit Refresh, is coming out in a few weeks. So here's my quick plug for Microsoft Alumni, which you're one and so am I. Microsoft Alumni Network is going to be the first group of people that are going to hear Satya Nadella speak, CEO of Microsoft, speak about his brand new book, Hit Refresh, at the Reunion with a Purpose on October 12th. And then it's even before employees hear about it, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
But I think within that, he and the team has kind of transitioned around. So in the olden days, DX, the group I used to work for, was very focused on partners, and they weren't necessarily connected to product teams, and they weren't necessarily connected to the field. So in a sense, you had this sort of instantiated disconnect that was almost corporately approved. But that's changed. Now the whole new idea of enterprise channel managers, and they put the C word back in there, so the channel's back in there. And I think to your point, the partner model has changed and shifted. And I wouldn't say Microsoft was ignoring the partners. They just had a different perception of what partners brought to the table.
Right.
That's back because the competition, Google, Amazon, Salesforce, their model, Salesforce in particular, their model with Ron Huddleston leading the one commercial partner, Microsoft's model has shifted not to be exactly like Salesforce, but to take on some of those best practices where this is where I'll pat Satya on the back, and I do it in person if he was sitting here. Wait, where is he? I've got his picture. I need a Satya cutout. We need to get that for tonight. But I'd give him kudos and pat him on the back for this, as he's empowered management at all levels to build out what it really means to be a partnering organization again, where I think they were very much down the Oracle path, the IBM path, and not to pick on those guys, but those two companies have a very old school model of what it means to be a partner. And Microsoft has, I wouldn't say they've done a 360, except to put them right back where they were. They've done a 161 degrees, 163 degrees, we'll see. But they've shifted to what it means to be a partner. And that, I believe, is going to change how the field engages and how corporate engages for the better. I'm actually looking forward to it.
Well, I think that, and it's something that's felt all the way down to, end users for whatever the product area is, that it was Satya's first keynote at the WPC event when he had taken over as CEO. And he talked about, transforming collaboration, transforming productivity. He talked also in that speech about looking at problems end to end and recognizing that Microsoft not only may not have the best solution for that end-to-end customer need, they may not have a solution in there. And rather than going and saying, well, we're not going to go and recommend better or to fill the gaps, these missing pieces from competitors, we want to embrace the best technology, the best solutions for our customers, provide the best solutions in the categories in which we compete, but go and look at things through that end-to-end perspective. And that's still permeating down through product teams. I think just look at the nature of some of the products and how large Microsoft is. You still have to have people, developers and teams that are focused on individual features. And so they're looking at things through their blinders of their features.
Right.
But that, within a product or even across products, that they do also need to look at how does this work? How does this interact? Great example is, well, I don't have a specific product example. But thought of while I was an employee there, I would go over and participate in some of the presentations in Building 99 over in the R&D. Yep. And the R&D organization at Microsoft put on these great events. They brought in like Malcolm Gladwell twice that I saw. Yep. Went and saw him speak, and but they also then would do these kind of product showcases, these different things that they've gone and they've and built. And I remember sitting in one of them, and somebody asked the questions like, "Hey," to this. I don't remember what the technology was, but just for the example, I said, "Hey, have you talked with, over with the Office group? Have you talked to like Word and maybe OneNote about how what you've shown here would integrate in, and how it competes with the initiative that they're developing that does something similar?" And she's like, "No, I wasn't aware that the products that did something similar." There was a complete disconnect, which again, it's not surprising for an R&D department to be, off doing research and development away from products. Right. But it gave the appearance to me as a Microsoft employee that there was a fundamental disconnect in what they were doing over there in translating those things into workable product. Now, second part of my story, my 3-part story. Second part was seeing Gig Jam, which just recently was shuttered this last week. But Gig Jam as this next gen collaboration capability that allowed you, that had in the demonstration that Julia White did. I think it was that same WPC. Yeah. Yep. And so if you go look, do a search on YouTube for Gig Jam Julia White, you'll find this demo. It's awesome. It's worth seeing. Now, really cool. I sat there watching this and understanding some of the components around Dynamics, around SharePoint, around a little bit of the Cortana, but the machine learning aspect of it, the analytics portion of it. Definitely understanding the permissions and the difficulty of managing permissions, especially across these various technologies. But that demo was very cool. I saw that it was largely, I believe, smoke and wires to make that demo happen. It was impressive around that. Also understanding the complexity of what would need to happen to stage that scenario. And my mind instantly thought of, it's like NASA. The fact that NASA is trying to put a man on Mars is irrelevant to my day-to-day life and will likely be irrelevant to my day-to-day life for my entire life, whenever they get there. However, the ecosystem that is generated to make that possible, make that happen, creates so much innovation that then can be used for day-to-day things that will impact my life. That's what I saw Gig Jam as. Yep. Not Gig Jam, but what it would then go and open up. And so now with some of what's happening around bots and connectors within Teams and with in SharePoint and Office 365 in general, and all of that, where people look at, and this is the third part of the story here, 2-3 years ago, with the complaint that Microsoft is now going and creating point solutions that are eating the business of partners, and they've forgotten that partners built this model. Yeah. They have now, 3 years later, you can see that it has opened up this whole other world of these opportunities into, as you mentioned, that example of HoloLens, people experimenting with that. I know, a dozen different, 2 of my customers right now are developing bots that are very advanced, more advanced than I've seen anything that Microsoft has produced in Teams today. Yep. Around that, you said HoloLens Teams, things around Graph, things around, certainly within the Office ecosystem and the Office 365 ecosystem. Now the Microsoft 365 SKU, that offering, there's so many new things for businesses to go and focus on. And so now it makes sense that Microsoft is then going looking at whether they realize that there was a pause or potentially some damage done to how Microsoft works with the channel. They're now going back looking at, how do we improve this? How do we get more people to realize that, hey, we're still here, we've made some mistakes, we've learned, but there's all these other opportunities. Just seems like there's so much potential that's out there now. It's a great time to be in there as a partner in the channel.
I agree.
Man, I mean, I really believe that.
And I'm with you on that same page. I think there's going to be a new opportunity. So it's from, as you said, from point solutions to platforms. And I think Microsoft is back to focusing on platforms, and that's a good thing. That's what they are. I call them, and Amazon and SAP, I call them platform providers. But it's now the challenge and opportunities. I mean, you can say you can take challenges certain ways, different ways, but the idea of, as a new platform, bots are a great example, because there's bots that are going to do everything kind of under the covers, scraping data out of healthcare stuff. And I'm just finishing a really good book right now called The Rise of Industry. I think it's called by Alec Ross. He worked in the Clinton, worked for Secretary Clinton when she was Secretary of State. But the idea is there's a bunch of, the future is going to be data. So the net of it was, they talked about in the olden days, land drove everything, then iron or access to industry drove everything, and now the next generation is going to be data.
Right.
And great example from a platform perspective, and I think there's going to be an opportunity for a partner. Maybe it'll be an Accenture, maybe it'll be an AvePoint, maybe it'll be somebody else to build out for lack of a better term, a change management / opportunity awareness map. Because I can make 10, well, I don't know about me personally, someone can make 10 bots, or I can make bots. And actually, the model is quite simple and straightforward. And if I can come up with an idea to help maybe a chiropractor office or maybe a local farmer build their business, that bot could be plugged into Office 365. It might be very localized, but maybe I can commercialize that and say, hey, if this works for these guys, it might work for a different, I'll say, farmer or a restaurant or shop. The challenge is going to be, how does the DevOps, and I know we're getting towards the end of time, but how does the DevOps side of the business, how does IT, if you want to call them that still, how do they manage this change management? So somebody in the olden days, a quote unquote citizen developer, would have a rogue app, a rogue server underneath their desk. And nowadays, with the internet being as predominant as it is for the last 10, 15 years, that's not the way it works anymore. I can build a little applet that might be solving a reporting problem or something else for me, but how do I know from an internal corporate standpoint, how do I know from an external side what's out there and what's possible instead of reinventing the wheel? So the point of that is, I think there's going to be an opportunity for kind of like the Office Store or whatever they're going to call it, that's going to be a place to go find information. Like John Ferrara with Nimble, he's got his new Office 365 plugin for basically social selling and CRM, or social CRM, which is pretty cool. And John's fantastic. I've known him for years, but that's a very specific one. Somebody else might build one that's very specific for the oil and gas industry, or then maybe we'll take Nimble and tweak it for that. And the idea is it's going to be, there's massive opportunities ahead, not just in the VR, AR, MR stuff. That's coming down the path for sure. And I think two things I've said for years is that millennials and baby boomers, I'm not skipping Gen X's, but they should be at least put together and make that connection, because baby boomers have something I call the femme factor. You've heard me talk about it before, and I spoke about it at Inspire, but they've got friends, experience, and money. And those friends, they have a Rolodex. You want to have a conversation with somebody at a company, they will know them or know someone who knows them. They've got the experience. They know how to set up supply chains. They know how to run a business. And I'm not saying millennials and Gen Zs don't. They'll learn. I mean, there are exceptions. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, various other companies have been built. And then finally, the last thing is they've got money. And I mean, sure, millennials do too, but it's connecting those two is the biggest challenge. And I know we talked about it before, but I've got a blog post. I'll push the trigger on that not long after this call. But it's one thing I'm really happy to see is Microsoft is reconnecting what I think you guys call them Ignite reporters. I'm really happy to see that Microsoft as a company is engaging reporters that are predominantly all MVPs, I think.
Reporters.
Yeah, reporters. Yes, yeah, predominantly, I think they're all MVPs, but they're people that have experience, and they're not all boomers or Gen Zs or millennials or Gen X. Well, actually, they probably are one of those. They're definitely one of those four. Yeah. But the idea is...
Or one of those two.
Exactly. One of those two. Anyway, but I think what's going to happen is that's a great thing to see, because Microsoft is re-engaging with the people that, number one, know the community. They know the partner ecosystem. And last but not least important is they know how customers think and work. And I'm really happy to see that connection. And I know, let's see, I'm trying to think, I think Alistair might be an IAMCP member.
Alistair's there, yeah.
But I think from a partner side of things, it's really good to see the reconnection of Microsoft re-engaging with partners, and I think I'm going to give Satya credit for it. Maybe it's misplaced, but I'm going to give him credit for it anyway, and pat him on the back and give him kudos, because I think 3 years ago he set Microsoft down this path to re-engage with the channel, which helps partners, which helps build a whole new ecosystem. And the net of all this is, and you've heard me say it before, but I'll throw it here so people with Digital Sack Lunch hear it too, is we, collectively we, you, me, and everybody listening to this need, in my opinion, to make sure that millennials and Gen Zs, because they're coming up right after millennials, feel comfortable and confident that they can build their careers and they can build businesses on the Microsoft platform. And selfishly, I'm invested in that too, because I've been in this space for 20 plus years, and I want to see these young people come into the business. And whether they own it or whether they're just building bots, I'm happy to help and support them. And I think from a getting things done perspective, I hope Digital Sack Lunch gets out there to a ton of people, and they hear this and they call you or call me and say, how do we get involved?
Right. Well, I think, Jeff, with that, to wrap up, I think this will be seen by literally dozens of people.
Whoa, dozens.
Dozens? Yes,
dozens
over the next, 2 or 3 years. So, no, but it's Jeff, it's always great talking to you about this. I think there's a lot of exciting things that are happening around the channel for sure. If you'd like to know how to get more involved in the peer-to-peer channel activities, have these kinds of discussions, meet other partners in your areas, Jeff said, go to IAMCP.org to find out more information. It's international, of course, so there's a reason why there's the international site, there's a US site for that. You can find a local chapter. You can, as Jeff said, start a local chapter if there's one missing and start doing some of that peer-to-peer networking. But you can immediately go and start tapping into that global community of partners that are looking for other partners to, partner with. But anyway, lots going on out there. And Jeff, thanks also for the plug for the community reporters. I'm really looking forward to Ignite at the end of this month. And I'll then see you soon-ish.
We will.
Yeah.
Soon-ish. Well, thanks for having me on Digital Sack Lunch. It was fun, and I hope we can do it on a more regular basis.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Bye.